So we are going to basically use this torso as a base, and we are going to construct the coat pattern. So to do the coat pattern, we require a few more additional measurements like the length of the coat, the hem circumference of the coat, etc., which we will be writing down over here right now so that it is easy for you to look at something and follow. Okay. So based on the measurement that we are using currently, the length corresponds to around 43 inches. So let's just have a look at that in centimeters. So 43 would be around 110. So it depends according to the length that we are basically using. So the length of the coat, here I've taken it almost up to the calf, so it's coming around 110 centimeter. And then we're looking at the circumference, so the width of the circumference. So the width is coming almost in 1/2 up until 12 inches, so that is around 31. So coat circumference for the half, which is 31 centimeters. And then there is an extension. Basically, for any kind of a coat that we do, we have an extension along the neckline, which basically gives us the lapel construction. So here I'm giving an extension of around 12 centimeters. Okay, so we are giving an extension of 12 centimeters, which is basically from the center front extension. Okay, everything else we'll basically follow the base, and then we'll try to do the changes accordingly. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing that we're going to do is we will trace the bodice which we have created, which is not the bodice, the torso, first onto the main paper, and then we will continue with the rest. So the next thing that we're going to do is work around the neckline and the lapel. Okay, so for the lapel and the neckline, the first thing that we have to mark is actually the extension from the shoulder. Okay, so we have to go ahead and give an measurement extension of around 2.5 centimeters from here. Okay, and 2.5 centimeters inside as well. So you're marking this extension both the half like this. So once this is done, now the next thing that we have to do is we are going to go ahead and mark the bust point. So instead of marking the bust point, what we can do is we can just go ahead, keep our block, which we have done earlier, and look at the position for the bust point, which is right over here. Get the same marking transferred. Okay, so this is the area of the bust. We just have to draw a line along that. Okay, and we extend this line till the extension of 12 centimeters, which we have made. Okay. So this is sort of like, an extension for the break point. So this is the extension for the break point, which we generally do for any kind of a jacket or even any kind of other constructions that we use. So once we have determined the break point, we are basically going to start connecting this all the way up until the point that we have given as an extension. Okay, so we will be giving it this. Kind of like rectangles. And we can use the second line as a guide. Okay, so this line what we see over here, let us just try to fold along the second line, and we can see that the extension looks quite much more better for a coat from the second line than the first line. So the first line, if we try to use it for folding, the lapel part is quite smaller. So we'll use the second line as our guide for the lapel. So since this is a coat which we are using for an adult, generally the break point goes almost, I would say, in inches, around 2 inches below the bust point. So this is coming almost up to the 2 inch. So it is something which we can go ahead and use, almost 5 centimeters low. So from the bust point we go down by almost 5 centimeters. And then we are marking this point, which is actually what we call as the break point. So once this much is done, then we are going ahead with the construction of the rest of the part, which we can actually call as our, the expansion. So it comes like this. This lapel part will come definitely like this, and then it flaps over onto our top. Okay, and generally why we are doing this is because there is an extension which we provide. Okay, so now that we have the lapel line done, we just have to finish now with the extension from the neckline. Okay, so for that, the first and most important thing that we need to work on is giving the certain directions for making the curve for our neckline. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to actually expand our neckline. So let's mark this point first. Okay, this is where the lapel line is touching our neckline. Okay, and let's mark this one as X, just for us to understand. Okay, and here already we know that we have given, this is the 2.5 centimeters which we have given. Let's label this part as A. Okay, now what we have to do is basically we are going to give an extension which keeps going like this. Okay, this should come almost up to 2.5 centimeter, but again it has to go in the form of a curve. So 2.5 centimeter almost equal to 1 inch. So which is 2.5 comes up to here. Let us just curve the ruler or the tape. If you have a French curve, it is easier. Curve and just join it here, this point. Okay, now so we have given this expansion 2.5 centimeter. Once the 2.5 centimeter is done, then the next thing that we have to do is basically we are going to use this to connect straight up. Okay, kind of like a guide. Again, making sure that our lines are at right angles. Okay, so this would be the expansion that we have for the collar line, this much. And we know that this is sort of like, overlapping, which is why it is slightly more bigger. And for a trench coat, we always keep it slightly more bigger. Okay, so basically what we have done is we have given the expansion over here, and this point which we have given as, an extension is what we refer to as D. So we're keeping these points just for us to understand. Okay, and now we are connecting the D all the way up to the E point over here. Okay, so this is the first initial step which we are going to give the expansion. Now here, remember, this measurement always changes. Since it's an adult, we are going for something which is almost equal to 12 centimeters, or in inches scale, we can always go for a 4.5 inches. Okay, so now this much is finished. Now the next thing that we have to do is go ahead and expand it into the collar. So let me give the outline first in dark marker so that it is easy for all of us to understand. Okay, so now according to the design that we have decided to create, you can either go for the lapel, which could be pointed, or we can even make it something which is slightly, curved. Because if we are making something like a pea coat, generally what we do is we give a little bit of a curved edge for the lapel. Okay, on the other hand, if you even want to reduce the size over here, if you're not happy, if it's too much big, because generally what we do is for a coat construction, you might have like a double-breasted kind of a outline, which is why we give so much of an extension. So all of this is totally changeable later on. So right now we have to do the collar. So for that, I have just kept the tracing sheet over here and trace the outline for the neck. Once we have the neck traced, then the rest of the steps follow accordingly. So the first step that we are going to do is from this part, which is your the neckline which we have traced from the base, we are going to give